of self. But one of the ways that you've done this is that you've turned out in this book to be a terrific storyteller. And so you use stories to illustrate your points. So why don't you share one or two of those with us today?
Well, the interesting thing, you talk about the storytelling, I'm very accustomed to writing more technical types of pieces, in professional journals and things like that. And the idea behind this book was that I wanted it to be accessible to anyone. I wanted the high school senior to be able to get just as much out of it as a corporate executive. And when I think about what really serves as a vehicle or a catalyst to communicate ideas, and I think it really, some of the best ways of doing that, and from my experience, from what I've observed, is people who can tell stories, a good story. Mm-hmm. And so what I tried to do, the book only has 4 chapters, 3 that really are content driven, and then the final chapter, which is very activity driven. And so I tried to look at the ideas of learning by design, living by design, and leading by design through the lenses of both concept, but also through stories. I think that in terms of a favorite story, I think one of them, and maybe it's because we are where we're located today, but one of the things that I think that you really have to be careful of as a human being, as a member of the human race, is the power of words. And words have the capacity to generate life in other people, but they also have the capacity to destroy people.
Right. And
in the first chapter, I talk about sort of the one-size-fits-all approach that we often take to teaching and learning, and that people are very, very different. Their constitution is quite unique, and as we embrace that sense of individuality, and we embrace the differences and the gifts that people bring to the table and can facilitate those unique characteristics within the learning process, there's a much greater likelihood that student is going to really grow and really evolve. And one of the stories that I tell in the story in the book is this, I talk about this idea of Dreamstealers and Dreamstarters.
Right.
And I've told you quite a bit about my childhood, and I was very, very captivated by the world around me. And I was very fortunate to have parents that found creative ways to cultivate that, to nurture that sense of awe with the world. And whether it was through being involved in the science fairs or being involved in community groups, community education, there were always ways, going to the public library for story hour, as a small child. And I really, really loved learning. And by the time I got to high school, I found the process, for the most part, to be sort of impersonal. I had a transactional attitude towards most of my classes. So I was an average student. And there were a few courses here and there that I really enjoyed, but for the most part, I did what I needed to do so that I could focus on my DJ business, which I had going on at the time.
Right.
And during my senior year, I really came to the conclusion that I want to be a teacher, I want to be an educator, and I want to be a good one. And I knew that I had a visit, kind of an exit interview with my guidance counselor. And I remember the day that a student came to my class, whatever class I was in, and said, this pass is for you. Come go see your guidance counselor. And I remember walking through the hallways of the school and really excited to tell her about my plans to go to the community college, that I wanted to be a teacher. And I go up in there into the office, and I sit down, and I'm excited, and we have some small talk. And she says, "So what are your plans after June? What are you going to do?" And I said, "I want to be a teacher, and I'm going to go to the community college." And I remember being so excited, my heart was pounding, and she looked at me right in the eyes, and she said, "Tony, you're not college material. Focus on your DJ business. You wouldn't make it in college." And my heart sunk that day, and I really, really left discouraged. And I talk about this in the book. And I don't know what it was about that experience, but I did not allow it ultimately to kind of destroy my plans, my ideas, my dreams. I was discouraged. But I just think there are so many people that we come into contact, you know, and it may be a parent, it may be a teacher, it may be a guidance counselor, and their words, as I said, can infuse life, but they can also inflict great pain.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, that's a powerful story, and because of my background in education and experience, both at the public level, K-12, and in higher ed, I know sometimes we don't understand how words, how powerful they are, and how they can impact, especially students. You know, when they're, you know, it's hard enough to figure out where you want to be or what you want to do for the rest of your life, and then to have someone steal that potential dream that you had. You talk about those examples in your book, and you talk about ways to defeat that. And we could talk just about that one concept for the next couple of hours. But let's move on to the positive part of that, and that is that you also talk about Dreamstarters, which is the polar opposite of the Dreamstealer. Tell us a little bit about that, and how do you think that works as we try to figure out our own personal design?
Well, I don't believe that there are any two people that are exactly the same on this planet. I don't believe that there ever have been two people that are exactly the same. I think that every person contains a very unique set of characteristics, of gifts, and it's when we are attentive to those gifts, when we nurture those gifts, when those gifts are affirmed and then strategically applied in various ways, that we really, really are able to make a difference in the world. And I think that a dream starter, which I talk about in the book, and there's a story that goes with that as well, I think that when a dream starter comes into our lives, they see us not necessarily as we are, or as we see ourselves. They see our potential. And they may share some words, they may create a scenario, they may do something that allows us to nurture those gifts and to really pursue maybe what we're supposed to be doing.